evening, and thank you for the opportunity, Lord Dubs, and to Safe Passage, and to Jersey Cares. It's a real opportunity for me to speak to all of you. It's not a day goes by when I don't feel proud and privileged to have the role as the first Children's Commissioner for Jersey. In fact, the law that underpins my role is going to the States Assembly soon for debate, and so it's a very exciting time. I'm speaking about this because it's an area that's passionate to my heart. Certainly when I was a Director of Children's Services in South Wales, we welcomed refugee families and they became an integrated part of our community. Just a few months ago, a colleague and I had the enormous pleasure of going to the UN in Geneva, and we listened to Haya, a 16-year-old girl who stood up and spoke in front of the whole of the UN General Committee and told us what it was like growing up in a refugee camp having fled Syria. And when asked, what is it that you miss? She said, I miss the opportunity to be able to go to school. And she had come to the UN on behalf of the children from that camp to make sure that they had a voice. We all know that children who are refugees are extremely vulnerable, whether they're with their parents or if they're alone. They've experienced and they've witnessed things that no one ever should, that most of us will never witness. We know that refugee children require special protection and humanitarian assistance. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes talking to you about what it is that the law tells us. We know that unaccompanied migrant children are entitled, yes, they are entitled to protection under a broad range of international, humanitarian and human rights laws. Laws that have been ratified here in Jersey. This includes the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, the European Convention on Human Rights, and the 1951 UN Convention relating to the status of refugees and its 1967 protocol. The UNCRC is the most universally accepted of all of these and the most comprehensive in its promotion of children's rights and was extended to Jersey in 2014. The UNCRC itself, contains 54 articles. If you like, the way we explain this to children is that they are promises. And these set out universal civil, political, economic, social and cultural rights for children. Promise number 22, or Article 22, says that a child is a refugee if they have had to leave their country to escape war, persecution or natural disaster. It goes on to explain that children who are refugees have rights. The right to special protection and help, whether they've come to Jersey with other people or on their own. The rights of refugee children in Jersey are protected by me in the role as Children's Commissioner, regardless of if they're Jersey citizens or not. Refugee children do not lose their rights under the UNCRC just because they've moved from one country to another. The specific things that they have includes the right to shelter, to education and to medical treatment. There's also another concept within the UNCRC that's called best interest, and in its simplistic forms, what that means for a child is adults must do what's best for me. So when we're making decisions in Jersey about whether or not we're going to welcome refugee children to our island, we must put that at our heart. Are we making those decisions in the best interests of those children? Article 3 of the UNCRC says that adults should think about the best interests when making choices, and so that means adults should think about their best interests when they make decisions. Adults in positions of power should think about what's best for children in their day-to-day lives and make sure that they are protected. So this is the most important article within the UNCRC. Also, we're not going this alone. We're quite late to the table. And as you can see, there is a wealth of written material, of research, of practical guidance, people who've lived that experience, who can help us. It's not like we're going into something where no one else has gone before. So the Jersey context, although not directly incorporated into domestic law, the principles of the UNCRC guide our domestic law and practice, and indeed now are being referred to in the States Assembly and in our courts when interpreting obligations imposed by human rights and other legislation. But by ratifying the UNCRC and the human rights law, the Jersey government have accepted that all children, irrespective of their immigration status, must enjoy all the rights and protections of the UNCRC without discrimination. The government has also made itself clear its commitment to children and its consideration of the UNCRC in its policy and decision-making. This is through, for example, the draft Commissioner for Children and People's Law, the Children's Plan, the Government Pledge, and through one thing that we call due regard and incorporation. So just to end, many of these children are facing poverty, war, or persecution in their countries of origin. During their journey to or through the EU, they're vulnerable. Vulnerable to smugglers, to traffickers, as well as to sexual abuse. Is this someone else's problem? Or does Jersey have a role to play in providing refuge to a small number of children who are fleeing such violence and living day to day in camps and elsewhere? That's the question that we want to explore today. So thank you.